Hey guys, it's Miss Ewing with our learning video titled Adding and Subtracting Decimals. Like with all of our learning videos, please remember that at any time you can stop, rewind, and rewatch any portions that seem a little bit confusing. After watching the video, have your parents create some problems for you, or come see me in class and we can definitely get some work pages for you to work on at home. This will help you become more comfortable with the math that we're doing in class. Let's go ahead and get started. One of the most important things that we can do when we add and subtract decimals, A, is be very organized with our work. Remember in class we talk a lot about attending to precision. That's exactly what we're going to practice here. Another thing that you need to remember is when adding and subtracting decimals, the first thing that we always need to do is line up our decimal places. This rule is a little bit different with multiplying and dividing decimals, so for now, let's just focus on the adding and subtracting. Let's try the first problem. 43 and 1/10 plus 27 and 25 hundredths. Now, remember I just said that the most important thing we can do is to line up our decimals. So starting with my first addend, 43 and 1/10, and then being very careful to line everything else up, my problem setup looks like this. Now sometimes I can get a little bit confused by that empty space above the 5. So what we can do is annex a 0. We're able to annex a 0 anytime it comes at the very end of the problem all the way to the right or all the way to the left without changing the value of the problem. This simply helps us hold the place and keep our work a little bit more organized. Let's go ahead and add these numbers. 0 plus 5 gives us 5. 1 plus 2 gives us a 3. 3 plus 7 will give me a 10. I'm going to keep the 0 and regroup my 1. 4 plus 2 is 6, plus 1 more is 7. Last step, don't forget the most important piece, your decimal. That makes our answer 70 and 35 hundredths. Let's try another one. Let's go a little bit bigger this time. 1,026 and 2 hundredths plus 423 and 7 tenths. Again, the most important thing is to line up our decimal. So I start with my first addend, 1,026 and 2 hundredths, and attending to precision by lining my numbers up very carefully. Again, don't forget you are able to add or annex a 0 if it helps you to keep your place values lined up. Now we simply add. 2 plus 0 is 2. 0 plus 7 is 7. 6 plus 3 is 9. 2 plus 2 is 4. 0 plus 4 is 4. And 1 plus 0 is 1. Don't forget that very important step to add in our decimal, making our answer 1,449 and 72 hundredths. Seems pretty easy, doesn't it? Let's take a look at a subtraction problem. Again, with subtraction, it's important to remember we're lining up our decimal places. Let's go with something slightly easier. 497 and 22 hundredths minus 25 and 12 hundredths. Even though we're doing a different operation, we're still going to line up our decimals. 497 and 22 hundredths minus, paying very close attention, decimals, and what comes directly before. Now, after my decimal place, there's no need to annex any zeros, but in the beginning of the problem, if it helps me line things up, I can go ahead and annex that 0. Now, we just subtract. When I subtract, I always ask myself, top number, take away the bottom number. So in the first section here, all the way to the right, 2 take away 2 gives me 0. Then I move into my next place value. 2 take away 1 gives me 1. 7 take away 5 gives me 2. 9 take away 2 gives me 7. And finally 4 take away nothing still gives me a 4. Last step, take care of that decimal place. And now our answer is 472 and 10 hundredths. Let's take a look at another problem. I'm going to try to make this one just a little bit harder. 1005 and 2/10 minus 12 and 15 hundredths. Go ahead and write our first number, 1005 and 2/10, paying close attention to the lining up of our decimals. This looks like a good problem to go ahead and annex some of those zeros. And again, this is simply to make sure that we're holding our spaces and staying organized. Again, I'm going to start by asking myself, can I take away 5 from my 0? In this situation, no. So we're going to have to go next door and borrow from the 2, which makes this a 1, and add that value to our 0, which makes that now a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 1 minus 1 is 0. 5 minus 2 is 3. And it looks like we ran into another situation where I cannot subtract. In this case, I cannot take 1 away from nothing. So I need to go next door and try to borrow. But when I go next door, there's nothing available. That just means I'm going to have to go one step further and go all the way to my thousands place. I'm going to borrow from my thousands. That becomes 0. And now my hundreds place becomes a 10. That doesn't really seem to have helped me much. So I'm going to say again, can I take 1 away from 0? Not really. So let's look at that next place value, which is now the 10. Take away from the 10, which makes it a 9, and my tens place gets that value. Now it's fair to say that 10 minus 1 gives me a 9, 9 minus 0 gives me a 9, and then 0 minus 0 has no value. Finishing with my decimal place, my answer to this problem is 993 and 5 hundredths. Now I know sometimes the regrouping can get a little bit tough. As long as you take your time and ask yourself, can I take away the bottom number from the top? If that's not possible, just remember to borrow from the neighbor next door. If you need additional help with regrouping, please ask a family member or see me between classes or during lunch, and we can work on a few problems together.